SoCal Seahawk, Robert English. How you doing, Robert?
I am doing pretty good. Always good after a win.
Yeah, especially a win in a city that we haven't had much success in, that being Pittsburgh. In fact, I believe the last time the Seahawks won, as they did this weekend, what was it, 28-24? Last time they won was 1999.
Well, yeah, quite some time ago. I think the last, if I'm not mistaken, the last two times we're there, weren't we shut out in Pittsburgh? So,
Yeah, the last time we were there was Pete Carroll's only shutout at either the professional or college level.
wow, yeah,
Crazy, huh?
A win at Heinz Field has been a long time coming. That's for sure.
Yeah. Hey, let's take a look at this game. I was shocked. I was amazed. I was confused, Robert. There were 35 pass attempts. We actually passed more than we ran. That's different.
That's definitely different. That's out of our out of our character for sure. You know, it's weird how when this kind of thing happens with the Seahawks and when we go out of our wheelhouse with the offensive game plan, oftentimes it seems to work for us, and then we always sit back and we wonder when we do things like this and talk on podcasts and shows and things, why don't we do it more often? You know,
Well,
we always start asking that question. You know, and I'm sure, you know, that question will be begged, you know, as we move through this week as well. Why don't you throw the ball more often? You're paying this guy all this money. Why are you having him hand the ball off?
yeah.
But,
Yes.
I am not of the opinion that we should have a paradigm shift in our game plan. Not just yet.
Was this an aberration? Was this just a game plan against a specific team, or do you see Brian Schottenheimer going back to the run?
I see us going back to the run for sure. I mean, it's been shown time and time again. Pete Carroll has made it known, you know, without any doubt that we are a run first team and we're going to run the football. You know, Sunday was yeah, like you said, it was a change in our normal process, but you have to do what you have to do when you got to go out there and win games. And
Yeah.
it's not that we didn't run the ball. I mean, we ran the ball well as a team. But the opportunities were there in the passing game, and we just capitalized on them.
Yes, definitely. We did run. It just was a little bit confusing that the percentage was more 50-50. I think 35 attempts. Yeah, 35 attempts passing, and I believe it was 30 attempts rushing. And that's just something that we haven't seen in a while. I took a look at it, Rob, as from the perspective of the Patriots lit them up in the air the previous week, and maybe Schottenheimer decided, well, maybe I don't need to always be a running team. Maybe we can take advantage of their weak pass defense.
Yeah, and I think maybe a combination of that, and also the fact that Russell, even yet again, is not getting a whole lot of time in the pocket. So to throw the ball, we're going to get the ball out quick. So it was working. It looked like they were the defenders on the Pittsburgh side were playing a little off, and there was opportunities for a lot of those quick passes, those slants, and those drags, and they worked.
Well, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been running the zone blitz for, I don't know, 20 years now. And Keith Butler, who used to be a Seahawk, by the way, he was a linebacker for the Seahawks back in the 80s. Their defensive coordinator stayed right on target with what they always have done, never changing their philosophy. And you're right, they're playing off, and they paid for it to the tune of 10 Tyler Lockett catches, a career high for him, by the way.
Yeah, Lockett was all over the place, and it was great to see because there was a whole lot of talk about him only getting 2 targets last week. Albeit that he made one of them count anyway.
Yeah, well, you brought this up last Monday. You brought up Tyler Lockett was double covered for the most of the game. He was not double covered for this game.
Yeah. So I don't know if Pittsburgh just decided that maybe Tyler Lockett wasn't as much of a force as we want want people to think he is, or what. But they certainly thought that they had the ability to cover him up in that zone. or maybe they thought they were going to have enough pressure to get to Russell Wilson that they just wouldn't be able to open up anything for him. But no, he had plenty of targets and he did well with all of them.
What do you make of DK Metcalf? He had 2 catches and a touchdown, but he also had 7 targets. Russell Wilson likes him, doesn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, what's not to like? The guy is a physical specimen. He's shown that he is sure-handed. He did bobble that touchdown pass that he caught there on that 38-yarder, but he made sure he got control of it before he stepped out of bounds. But he catches the ball. He's strong. He showed that if you get the ball in his hands, he can break tackles. DK Metcalf is going to be a force, and Russell knows that.
Right. We got another weapon. We saw a little bit of him last year before he got injured, but he's coming on strong yet again, and that's former University of Washington tight end Will Dissly. By the way, Will Dissly, he scored 2 touchdowns. I don't remember him being a touchdown threat at UW. And just seeing him like blossom into this Zach Miller type guy, I'm digging it. I'm really digging it.
Excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. No, I was so high on Will Dissly last season. I think it was, as a matter of fact, I think it was against, I want to say it was against Cincinnati. Was it not where he had a huge game? And then it was either late in that game or the next game where he got hurt. But I want to say it was against Cincinnati, but either way, yeah, he had one big game where he made a couple of really great plays and he got banged up and didn't get to see from him again. But yeah, no, 2 great catches in the end zone on Sunday. Dissly, he looks, I mean, when I look at him, I kind of felt like he was a little bit undersized, but the guy can break tackles. He again, good with the hands. I think if this continues, I'm liking Will Dissly.
By the way, that big game I think that you're referring to was against the Broncos, where he had 100 yards and that super long catch that I think it was like 60 or 70 yard touchdown reception, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he broke a few tackles and that game where he caught that ball and made that big play. I was like, wait, who is this guy? I wasn't quite sure who he was at that moment.
Well, I'm a big Husky fan, and I'll tell you what, he was not a pass catcher in college. He was a converted defensive lineman who was basically a road grader. He was a George Fant, basically how they intended to use George Fant as a tight end who's really just a third tackle.
Right. Yeah, no, it's what we've been able to see is that Pete Carroll and John Schneider and when they go through and they're building this personnel and these personnel groupings, they will find what I'll say, diamonds in the rough. They find what others couldn't see in these players, and it's paying off for us.
Yeah. You liking the split between Chris Carson and Rashad Penny? Carson had 14 carries and Penny had 10. They both had over 60 yards apiece.
Well, let me say this, because that's not as easy a question to answer as it is to ask.
Okay.
Every single time I get right to the point of starting to lose faith in Rashad Penny, he does something great. And I just, I feel like he's just indecisive or just doesn't seem to run as tough until he gets ahead of steam. When Penny gets ahead of steam going, he's a force. But I feel like at the point that he gets the handoff and he's behind line of scrimmage, I feel like he just doesn't have the it that I'm looking for. And I think he takes a lot of negative plays, or where Chris Carson doesn't. But then as soon as I get ready to just wash my hands with the guy, he breaks off and busts one for, how long was that run?
Oh boy, was it 40 yards? 30 yards?
Something around 40 yards. And I'm like, all right. He's Rashad Penny. So, let's, he bought himself another couple weeks with me.
Maybe you need to doubt him every week. Maybe I
should doubt him every week.
Hey, I don't know. I take a look at Penny, and what you say does ring true to me. He has a bit of twinkle toes, I guess I would call it, where he likes to dance around behind the line of scrimmage. And I agree with you, growing up with the likes of a Chris Warren or Derek Fenner. I kind of like those backs who just hit the hole, Chris Carson, and just go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate those guys that are gonna. I mean, we've been so, just spoiled with guys like Marshawn Lynch, and then Thomas Rawls was a quick to the hole
sure.
guy.
Yeah.
And even though he had the ability to scat a little bit, he was always quick to the hole. And then now Chris Carson, who gets downhill and runs powerful. And I thought that I was going to see that with Penny, but I don't know. There's something about Rashad Penny that just keeps just giving me a little pain in my side. But like I said, then he does something great like he did Sunday. And so, I guess I have to just reserve, my feelings on him for the moment.
Do you enjoy the progression of Russell Wilson? Whereas 6-7 years ago, Russell Wilson would take off pretty much any time in the game. But I've noticed in the last year and a half, maybe, he's saved his legs for the final quarter. He saved his scrambling for a little bit later in the game. And we saw it again against Pittsburgh, where he had 3 runs on the final drive and basically took over and did what he was paid to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, what the real idea behind that is, I mean, who knows such things, but what I do believe ends up happening is, Russell, he saved that for the end of the game. Excuse me. Sorry about that. He saves that for the end of the game. And if you think about it, when after 3.5 quarters or 3 quarters, a defense is already tired, and they've been doing everything they can to hold down your offense in every single facet that they can possibly think of, and then you bring them one more. And that's I think that's why it works so well. When it's late in the game and those guys are going for a pass rush, and that oftentimes that line is gonna part right in the middle, and Russell is gonna find that hole and just take off through it. And I don't think anyone's as good as doing it as he is.
Yeah, well, there's a guy that's pretty good as well. He was injured though, and on the other team, of course, that being Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know. Do we win this game if he doesn't get injured halfway through that?
I wondered that same question myself, and I pondered that question. I should say, and I look at it like this: the offense, I think, Pittsburgh's offense was better once the young kid came in there. When
Mason Rudolph, yeah,
correct. When Rudolph came in there, when Roethlisberger was in there, they were sort of stagnant. I mean, their only scoring drive happened to come because of a turnover by our offense.
True.
Which gave them great great field position, but they didn't look great with Big Ben. But again, it when it comes down to experience, Roethlisberger's been in those situations, where you got to go down and score some points to win the game late. And if nothing else, he would have had that. But that Rudolph kid didn't play bad.
Yeah, what is he, a second-year guy out of Oklahoma State? He ran that Oklahoma State wide open offense and has skill, and didn't look like the job was too big for him. He did look pretty good, but I noticed they couldn't run. They had fewer than 60 yards running, I believe, if I remember right. And do we attribute that yet again to having 3 linebackers in the game?
I think so. It appears that stopping the run is a main focus. I think they ended up with a little more than 60 on the day, but Connor, well, I think he rushed for less than 3 yards a carry, or right at 3 yards a carry on 11 carries. So. Mm-hmm. You're making a team one-dimensional, and if you make a team one-dimensional, it's much easier to beat them. Obviously.
I severely doubted and criticized this last week on this show. Why do we keep running out 3 linebackers? In today's game, you need to have your nickel defender in there far more often. But maybe I'm wrong. This is the second game in a row where the opposing team had fewer than 100 yards rushing.
Yeah, and I would have said that probably next week. That might change because there is a guy who wears number 9 on the team we're playing next week who can toss the ball around pretty good. But that changed. I don't know if we'll get into that later, but so he's not going to be there. So we might see a whole lot more of this 4-3 base because they have a running back named Alvin Kamara over there who's quite good, and we're going to need all we have to hold this guy down.
Yeah, wow, we lucked out in Roethlisberger getting injured, and we're going to look out next week because that number 9, of course, Drew Brees, won't be playing, and that's gonna require that we learn a little bit more about Teddy Bridgewater. I don't remember if he did start with the Ravens, right, early in his career.
Bridgewater was with Minnesota.
Yeah, before that, wasn't he with the Ravens? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But no, he was with Minnesota. You're 100% correct. And
Right.
he had that injury.
Mm-hmm.
And then he bounced around the league, didn't he, until he got to the Saints.
Finally landing at the Saints, correct. And
yeah.
and we have a little bit of tape on Bridgewater playing against Bridgewater's Minnesota Vikings. I think we won't have to deal with dealing with a quarterback that we've never seen before. We've got experience with him against this Seattle defense. So this I think this is going to bode well for us.
Sorry to interrupt you. Was he the QB in the playoff game in the record cold?
Yes, indeed, he was.
All right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
That's correct. That's correct. Well, a very hard fought game and another one of those nail biters and ones that probably giving me a brain tumor, but one we eked out another win on that one. And
yeah.
And I wanted to say, if I'm not getting too premature in the show here, this Seahawk team with these first 2 weeks of the season really reminds me a lot of our previous teams, our championship teams, where if you think about it, even though we went 13-3 and 12-4, it was a lot of games that we just eked out the win, and that a lot of that had to do with the great and wonderful Stephen Hauschka, who we no longer have anymore. But we didn't stomp everybody. There was a lot of games we just eked them out, and those are the games that really end up counting. When those games that you just get by because it still goes in the win column, and we've got 2 of them already this season.
My cousin Dave, who lives in Phoenix, big Cardinals fan, and he and I discuss this all the time. And he said probably the thing that he hates most about the Seahawks is games are not fun to watch. Like when your team goes up against the Seahawks, it's play to play. There aren't a lot of big plays. Seahawks just don't give up big plays. And
they don't die.
Yeah. And it turns into these slugfests that end up being an attrition war. And then, like you said, going back to Russell Wilson, you have a very tired defense that's chasing him, after 40, 50, 60 minutes, of this slogfest. So I took that as a compliment from him. If teams hate playing the Seahawks, then we know we're doing the right thing.
Absolutely. I mean, think back to Russell Wilson's rookie season, and that playoff game, the divisional round against Atlanta. Atlanta, I don't remember how many points they were up on us. And in the second half, we came back. I mean, Atlanta was dancing. Those fans were dancing in their seats throughout that whole entire stadium. And then all of a sudden, people were sitting there with their chin in their hand, wondering if their team was going to give up this game to a team they were up at least 3 scores on just a few minutes ago. We just find a way to battle back, even if we end up down big early or whatever the case may be. And Pete Carroll says it every time: just do what you have to do to find a way to have a chance to win it in the end. And that's what we often do.
Yeah. Hey, let's go back to this yesterday's game against Pittsburgh. I want to ask you about the safeties, the play of the two new, well, one new safety in Lano Hill, formerly Delano Hill, and that of Bradley McDougald as well. Did you like this tandem better than the Tedrick Thompson and Bradley McDougald, or did you prefer last week's play from the safeties?
Well, it's a tough call because I was nothing but upset over the fact that we gave up another flea flicker. Um, you know,
Right.
I mean, 2 weeks in a row you give up a flea flicker. I mean, yeah, this isn't 1994 where a flea flicker is gonna beat you for big yardage or probably a touchdown like it used to. That a flea flicker is almost game plan nowadays. What I mean?
Right.
You don't pull it out all that often. It's not as popular as maybe an end around or reverse, but you don't get beat on flea flickers like you used to. And
I don't think I've seen one for 6 years,
you
honestly.
know you know what I mean? And,
Yeah, I haven't seen one in a long time. And then all of a sudden, here comes all these flea flickers at us.
right. I mean, I see them all. I mean, I actually see them, semi often, but they don't typically beat you big anymore. And
Right.
certainly not uncontested. But and I wouldn't isn't to say that those ones were uncontested in these last 2 weeks either, but they just get you beat just enough to be out of position, and it's just frustrating to see. And I know we watching the game from the eye of the camera is a different situation, but to answer your question, between Roethlisberger and Rudolph, I think we did well keeping things in front of us, again with the exception of the flea flicker. We didn't give up a whole lot of yards. Obviously, Dalton threw for 400 yards last week.
Yeah.
And even between Roethlisberger and Rudolph, I think they threw for less than 150 or less than 200. I think it's like
Less than 200. Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere in there. Yeah.
Right. So,
So you say the results speak for themselves.
More or less, yeah. They weren't able to take the top off of our defense, which is good. So I don't know if that's just a situation of happenstance, but it worked out better this week than it did last week for sure.
Yeah. Hey, how'd you like our new nickelback, Jamar Taylor? Was with us in the training camp. They cut him. They brought him back, and I saw him making plays, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing perhaps the replacement for Justin Coleman.
Yeah, I think I saw him look good at times, and then I saw him, kind of out of position a couple of times as well. He seems to tackle, which is good. That's one thing I miss with guys like Shed.
Right.
Like Deshaun Shed was in my opinion, a great tackler. So Jamar Taylor looked like he was physical, which is definitely what we need. I think you mentioned before. I think it was maybe last week that Shaq is smaller than he was before, and so typically our style is to have those big corners.
Yeah.
They have those big defenders on the outside, and we've gotten away with that with Shaq coming back so light, but we still are physical, and I saw Jamar Taylor getting physical out there, so he looks good. We'll need a bigger sample size to really know whether he's what we need him to be. But for one game, yeah, I'm impressed.
My hope is that he does keep performing, and maybe we can take a look at Ugo Amadi playing the free safety role. And I know they really want him to play that nickelback, but boy, maybe we could use Amadi's speed back on the back half.
Right, and he got banged up, right? He was on the mend, right?
He got run over by McDougald in that last game. I saw him on the sidelines. I don't remember if he got in the game or not. Maybe they're just taking it easy on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, hopefully, you know what I mean. Let's let the guy get back healthy and see what he can actually do out there.
What'd you see from the pass rush, and where's Ziggy Ansah?
So Pete Carroll in the presser has said we're still day to day with Ziggy. I mean it's kind of I'm kind of like, okay, Pete, where you at? Because the hope was he was going to be there in week 1, he wasn't, and then they're okay. Well, we're hoping he'll be there for week 2. Now he wasn't. So here's it's game 3. And this in the presser, he's saying, Ziggy looks good, and we're hoping to have him out there, at the Clink this coming weekend. So let's get him out there. But with the fact, considering that we haven't lost, and the pass rush hasn't been great. It hasn't been terrible, but it hasn't. I would like to see more of it, or at least more consistent pressure. But we've been able to manage without him, so that makes me very hopeful for when he gets on the field. Because with what we have, you throw Ziggy Ansah out there, and I mean, what next? We've got to. I see beautiful things coming from our defensive line here.
There may not be any money for him, but from what you've seen from Jadeveon Clowney these last 2 weeks, would you like to take a look at signing him long term?
I think so. Jadeveon Clowney has he's been in the league how many years now? He's probably coming
4 or 5?
4 or 5 years, something like that. So he's probably going to be coming down to the end here pretty soon. So I wouldn't mind seeing a sign, even if it's could you sign him to a 3-year deal? Is that too much for a guy his age?
I guess it depends on what he wants. He's 26, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and does he want a 3-year or does he want a 10-year? Yeah, what is it that he wants, I guess? And I just looked it up, and he came into the league, and my browser just crashed.
Perfect.
Hooray! Anyway, I think he's 26, so it's probably been 4 or 5 years, right?
Right.
That makes sense. Here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4,
like
5. This is his 6th year. Yeah.
Right. So he's probably got, to this
good.
year, and maybe he could probably have three more decent years, depending on how healthy he stays. Depending on how much money he's looking for, I don't think we spend a whole lot of money on him. That's just not in the cards, and we've got some young guys that are looking pretty good. So if I would love to see him stay, because he's at the very least, like I said, he's a force out there. He may not make the play every single time, but you have to pay attention to him, which might open the door for somebody else.
I was thinking, would he take a 1-year max deal or something to that effect, where it doesn't leave us in the lurch if he gets injured for too long. I don't know. Every player seems a little bit different. Some players want that. They want the money up front. Some want the guaranteed over several years. It's tough. I wish we could keep him. If money were not an object, I want that guy on the team. I want him to stay.
Absolutely. Because like I said, he at the end of the day, he's Jadeveon Clowney. You know what I mean? So he stands to do you much more good than harm. So.
All right. Well, we're coming up towards the end of the show, but I want to bring up a topic that you actually brought up. So actually, I want to bring up your topic. Let me rephrase it that way. Is the NFC West the best division in football? With an undefeated Rams team, with an undefeated 49ers team, and obviously an undefeated Seahawks team, and an Arizona Cardinal team that isn't half bad, at least in the 2 games they've played. What do you think? Is this the best division in football?
Well, what are we as a division? We are 6-1-1. Clearly, we're a few games better than every other division in the league. I'm very surprised at the 49ers. I'm a little bit disappointed that they spanked the Bengals as bad as they did. Because we only were just able to scrape by Cincinnati, even at the Clink. So that kind of was disheartening. But no, the Niners are winning. The Rams are obviously winning. And side note there, the refs hooked up the Rams one more time. This weekend. I don't know how many times that's going to happen this year. But
was that the almost interception return?
The almost fumble return,
fumble return for touchdown.
Yes, it was clearly a fumble. And again, watching it from your couch made things look different, and the refs have a tough job, but it looks so clearly to be a fumble. And Cam Jordan picked that ball up and stumbling, rumbling, bumbling all the way down there, which would have completely changed the face of that game. But that was that, and here we are. But yeah, no, the Rams are playing well. The Niners are playing surprisingly well. Our Seahawks are holding on, We got three undefeated teams and one win team. We look good. It's really going to come down in our division, I think, to what we do amongst ourselves.
Yes, definitely. Are any of the 2-win teams, do you consider any of those pretenders, the Rams, the Seahawks, or the 49ers? Are any of them not really 2-win teams?
If I have to say one, don't you kind of have to say the 49ers? I mean, how much credit can you give the 49ers just yet? I mean, yes, they're 2-0. Yes, they've looked okay. But I mean, really, when it comes down to it, they've beaten the Buccaneers and they've beaten the Bengals. So you're not writing home to mom about beating the Buccaneers. And the Bengals, I'll give them a little more credit there because we had such a tough time against them.
But I mean, what can't you say that about the Rams? They beat a Drew Breesless Saints, and they just barely beat the Panthers, the woebegone Panthers. I mean, they could have lost that game to the Panthers, to be honest.
They certainly could have, and I mean, and really they could have lost that game to the Saints if things would have come together differently in the middle parts of that game. But
yeah,
you could say that, but I mean, I'm kind of I tend to believe that when you're on top, someone kind of has to dethrone you before we gonna. I'm not gonna say you're not still as good as you were yesterday, especially when you just won yesterday. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let me. And you're 2-0 today. I mean, come on, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. You got to earn it or lose it. The Niners got to earn it, and the Rams got to lose it.
Well, let's take a look at it. Okay, let's compare that NFC West against. I'm just going to go through these here one by one. AFC East, you have both the Patriots and the Bills at 2-0. I don't know if those Bills 2-0 wins mean that much. We'll see. But the Jets are awful. I don't know if you watched the game tonight. I'm sitting there watching a third-string quarterback in Luke Falk struggle, and the Dolphins are probably the worst team in NFL history. So it can't be the AFC East, right?
It's definitely not the AFC East. That almost goes without saying.
What about the AFC North? The Ravens are 2-0. The Browns are 1-1. Both the Bengals and the Steelers are 0-2.
Yeah, the Bengals with a brand new coach, their team and being 0-2, they're probably more of a I'll try to stay away from the rebuilding phase term, but I see them finding themselves. The Steelers are in disarray.
Yep.
Big Ben is out for the season.
I don't know why they traded. Why did they trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick? This season's done for.
Right?
I think it's a waste.
They've lost all of their star players. They have no more star power. AB is gone. LBL is gone. Yep. And so I mean, what do you have in Pittsburgh except for what do you have to look forward to except for disappointment? I think in Pittsburgh. So yeah, and the Ravens, and they just are putting up points. I mean, the Ravens are doing big things.
But I mean, they put up points on the Dolphins.
Yeah, but that was a lot of points. That was a lot of points. That's almost 60 points.
I think we can both agree that maybe they're top heavy, but like the AFC East, but those bottom two teams stink. And the AFC South, don't they all kind of stink?
In the AFC South, let's see, we got
Colts, Texans, Titans, Jags.
Titans, Jags. Yeah, the and what I just read today is that the corner, what's the corner over there?
Jalen Ramsey.
Jalen Ramsey, he's requesting to be traded.
Yeah, he wants out.
I think, he's not going down with the ship apparently. But I mean, the other guys, they've won one and lost one. I think kind of jury's out, and we got to figure out what they're going to do. I'm not expecting. I certainly don't see two teams from the AFC South making the playoffs this year. You'll get a division winner in there, and that's about it. One and done.
And the AFC West is kind of like the AFC East, isn't it? You have the Chiefs and a bunch of has-beens are also Rams.
Yeah, and I'm surprised about the Chargers. I thought for sure the Chargers were gonna, pick up where they left off last season, and the way that they played against the Lions was, for me, it was staggering. And I'm here in
Yeah.
San Diego, and well, they're not the San Diego Chargers anymore, but they still have a presence, and just terrible. It just they just revert back to the Chargers that everybody loves to hate.
Losing Russell Okung, that hurts.
Yeah.
But
Injury prone Okung, even when he was with us, it's
true.
He can't keep his ankles right. And I think what does he hurt this time? Is it his knee or
I don't spin a wheel or throw a dart at a board.
right?
And yeah, with a bunch of injuries, yeah. But let's flip over to the NFC and see if anybody in the NFC is better than the NFC West. We start with the South. Maybe when Drew Brees was with the Saints, you might be able to say that the Falcons and the Saints and the I don't know, the Bucks and the Panthers though. I watched that Thursday night game. That was tough to watch.
Yeah. So first of all, to just start with the Falcons, the Falcons look, how do I put it? For the Falcons to have the team that they have, I mean, the Matty Ice and
Julio
Jones, just to be so ineffective, like as ineffective as they were against the Vikings, but then yesterday against Philly, they eked out that win, but still wasn't overly impressive. So I think they might do what they have done in previous seasons where they come on strong late. But I'm not really buying there. I think you still got to give it to the Saints, even with Drew Brees being banged up. Buccaneers look like a very poor team, and Cam Newton is I don't know. Cam Newton, to me, he seems like a player who's just jaded. He doesn't seem like he even feels it out there anymore. I don't know.
I think that injury ruined him. The latest one.
Mm.
I don't like his passes. Again, that Thursday game was almost unwatchable, but I watched it. So the throws don't look strong anymore. They were off the mark. I think his history of his history of play, that Cam Newton I saw on Thursday night is not the same one, that led them to the Super Bowl. I think the latest injury got him.
Yeah, and maybe that coupled with the fact that the team really, the team that doesn't have a lot of there's not a lot of stars in that team. Sometimes I wonder, do you sit back as a player sometimes and just think like, man, what are we doing here? Like is Jalen Ramsey sitting back and thinking like, this team is not going anywhere, and
right.
I'm one of the, if not, he may think he's one of the or the best corner in the game. He wants to he's probably trying to see if he can make a stink and get signed with New England. So
yeah.
So,
well, look at a cornerback or a running back. I got into this argument a while back with a friend about players who hold out. If you're certain positions like cornerback, running back, you are only elite for just a couple of years.
mm-hmm.
A quarterback, they can go play till they're like 37, 38. A kicker, offensive lineman, they can play a little bit longer. Jalen Ramsey, although I think he's a big jerk, he is correct. Why waste my time here? I only have a short, 4 or 5 years of being the best.
Yeah, it's the way it is nowadays, and it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I try to remain objective, because I do kind of long for the days of loyalty to your team and all that kind of stuff. But it's a capitalistic society. We got to make that money while you can.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys, they know they have, like you said, their clock is short. They got to get out there and make that money and hopefully not bang themselves up too bad while they're doing it. and get out before their brains turn to mush, or their bodies, So I get it. I do get it. And it's just unfortunate, really.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of clock, we gotta get running here, but I just want to recap what you were stating as we go through these different divisions. And the last two that we missed were NFC North and NFC East. They have some good teams, but you're right. There are none of these that have three undefeated teams and three teams that have a legitimate shot of going to the playoffs.
Right. At least not at this moment. Granted that we're only 2 weeks in, but right now, it looks like this division is the division to beat. And how cool would it be to see the NFC West send 3 teams to the playoffs? That would be that'd be really cool. Let's have a NFC West conference game. That'd be all right.
All right, great. I need to wrap this up, and I want to thank everybody out there for listening to us. Check out all our great podcasts here on YouTube. Also, check out our great content at seattlesportsunion.com. As well, check out our Twitter at SeattleSportsU. And, Robert, the SoCal Hawk, you have a podcast of your own.
Absolutely.
Tell the folks.
Definitely, yeah. Check me out. You can catch me at short yardage. .podbean.com. That's Podbean, PODBEAN. Or you can find the links to it on SeattleSportsUnion.com.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time.
Go Hawks.